Hello, this is Mel from Digital Reach, and today I am here with Mandy Thompson to continue talking about how you can use HubSpot to improve your nonprofit management. And this time we're talking about donor management. So thank you, Mandy, for talking to me about this.
Absolutely. Donor management is, if not the most important, probably the top three of most important functionality that people need from their CRM if they're running a nonprofit.
Well, now you've piqued my interest, so you have to tell me the other two that are in the top three.
Okay, so donor management is absolutely one of them. And then reporting and forecasting, a lot of the tools that people use pretty commonly, like Blackbaud, make it very difficult to pull those reports. So I think that that is absolutely one. And then just kind of like program management, a lot of times you cannot, like you need to get your donations in, you need to do your development, but then you really do have to make sure that all of your operations along, okay, well, how do we get the work done that we're doing done? And that usually doesn't plug in very well with the CRM. So we see a lot of nonprofits in several disparate systems that even if you can't do everything in one tool, I'm not saying, I tell people this all the time, HubSpot is not a project management tool. Do not try to make it one. That's not what it's for now. And onboarding, like if you have a pipeline of activities, like onboarding activities, sign up activities, that kind of stuff you can do, but you can still within HubSpot, like as far as your actual program management, you can get a high level tracking of like how your programs tie to the revenue that you have brought in and other things that would be important. And anything you would use like an Asana, Teamwork, Monday, those do connect. So you can sync what's happening outside of HubSpot with what's happening inside of it. So you still have that single source of truth.
Yeah, that's why we love HubSpot so much, because it can do so much for organizations, especially nonprofits. And we will be talking about reporting and forecasting, but zooming in on donor management, can you tell me a little bit about which hubs and package levels people will need to use this feature to its fullest potential?
Yep. So donor management can work in HubSpot in a couple of different ways. Okay. So we're going to break it into two different buckets. One bucket is you're actually taking the payments in through HubSpot. Okay. Because HubSpot has HubSpot payments. The other is I want to track and attribute donations in HubSpot. Now, those can go together, but they can also be done separately, meaning you can take your donations in through a Stripe form directly on your website. You can take them in through a tool like Classy or FundRaiseUp, anything that integrates with HubSpot, and you can get the information into HubSpot that way. Or you can do it through HubSpot payments, which will bring the payments directly into HubSpot. Okay, so with HubSpot payments, you need Sales Hub Pro or higher to run HubSpot payments. Okay, so let's break down what you need to track donations. You need pipelines. So in order to track donations, you get a free pipeline. In HubSpot free, you get one pipeline. If you do HubSpot Starter, you get two pipelines. Now, you could do HubSpot Sales Hub Starter and connect it to a tool like Classy. Now, keep in mind, you have to have the $500 a month Classy in order to make the donations show up in HubSpot, right? So where do you want to have that cost? Do you want to spend the $500? Well, it's even less than that because nonprofits get a 40% discount automatically, right? So if Sales Hub Pro is $500, then for a nonprofit, Sales Hub Pro is only $300. So if you did Sales Hub Pro, you get more than two pipelines. And why is that important? Well, because then you can have a donation pipeline, you have a grant writing pipeline or grant tracking. You could have one for corporate sponsorships, anywhere else besides, one-to-one donors that you're getting money from. And so you need Sales Hub Pro if you want to be able to create an object record. So what does that mean? A deal is an object. A record would be an individual deal. So Mel donates $100. That's an individual deal, right? And so if we want to use automation to create a deal in the pipeline, then we need Sales Hub Pro or higher, okay? So typically we're going to need Sales Hub Pro or higher. However, if you have an outside tool that's creating the donation, so for example, we have had people before that have HubSpot Sales Hub Starter, and we use Zapier. When a new Stripe transaction comes in, it creates a deal in their pipeline so that we can track that for the donations. But all in all, I would say aim to have Sales Hub Pro or higher. However, you could have Sales Hub Starter and use an outside tool like Zapier or another donation management platform. But if you want to keep it cleanest, get those donations directly into HubSpot. You can use HubSpot payments. They do recurring credit card or recurring ACH. So again, You can cut those credit card fees down and have your donations done that way. If you're using the CMS Hub, we can create custom modules with your payments where we can have people actually assign where they want that donation to go to. So like if you have multiple different programs that someone could donate to, then you could break it down that way.
So there's definitely a decision component to all of that.
Yes.
At what point should a nonprofit turn to HubSpot for donor management?
Yes.
What problem does it solve? When's the right time? Who's the right person? What sort of information can you give me about initiating that decision?
Yes. Yeah. So when you're deciding whether you want to use HubSpot for donor management, the reason for it is, okay, number one, you get your marketing going in HubSpot, and then you can actually attribute all of your different marketing campaign efforts, paid ads, SEO, blogs, email marketing, all of those things you want to be doing. What's being effective in getting the donors, right? Because you're getting the donor data into the same system that's doing the marketing. So the why with HubSpot is to actually get everything in one place for better reporting, better attribution, easier operations. So you don't have your teams like, this team works in Blackbot and this team works in Classy and that team works in MailChimp, and none of those systems talk to each other. So we're all exporting things into spreadsheets and visualizing our data that way. Like, we shouldn't be doing that. So the why on HubSpot, and when you're deciding, like, move your donations into HubSpot, the decision about which level to go to depends on, do I have another system that I'm currently capturing my donations in, right? So we have to pull apart a few things here. So number one is, what system am I using? Does that system integrate with HubSpot? Either natively, so we check HubSpot's marketplace to see if if on the HubSpot side there's an integration. If we don't see it there, then we can go to the platform that we started using to begin with. Do they have an integration somewhere on their platform that we can use? Okay, they don't have one. Can we go through Zapier, right? Can we connect through there? So then we ask ourselves, does it connect? If it doesn't connect, then we run into do we just move it all into HubSpot, right? We could move it into HubSpot a couple of ways. We can move it into HubSpot by using HubSpot payments, or, which we've done for many clients before HubSpot had a payment functionality, was using a Stripe form. So we would build that onto their website, and then using Zapier to create the deal and associate it to the right contact or household. If you have an enterprise level hub, you can create a household object, so you can roll up all people in a household to one household for all of their donations, right? Or if someone's donating across different email accounts, or I donate at work and I donate at home, let's get that all into one household, because you're only going to need one tax letter at the end of the year for that person, right? And so we're asking ourselves, okay, number one, does this system integrate? If it integrates, do I want to keep it? If I want to keep it, then I just need to make sure that the integration is right so everything's configured in HubSpot. We also want to ask, is that cost effective? Like I mentioned, if you're paying $300 for Sales Hub Pro and you're paying $500 for Classy, Classy does have some functionality that would take a lot of custom work in HubSpot to set up. So I am not saying, I think that Classy and HubSpot are a great combination if you can afford that, right? And then you might go with the Classy cost if you're using all of their functionality. So for example, Classy makes it really easy if you want to set up the type of fundraiser where I am going to try to get all of my friends together, and as a team, we're going to go after this $5,000 goal, right? Classy's great for that. Can you do that with HubSpot? Yes. Would it take a lot of custom work? Yes. So if you do that type of donation appeal a lot, go with Classy and use Sales Hub Starter, because it will accomplish what you need to in tracking the donations. And then if you have Marketing Hub Pro, that's what you can use to automate all of the tax letter emails and all of that kind of stuff for marketing, right? Because that's where the real power comes in oftentimes for nonprofits, is auto-segmenting their donor list, using smart content to change the appeals based on how frequently people donate or how much they donate, customizing the pages based on which program they're interested in, right? And so a lot of the power comes from marketing, and we want to get the donor information into HubSpot so that we can drive all of that different marketing. But it's not like a traditional like for-profit business where we have all this sales functionality and we're rotating it to different reps and determining which sequence we run somebody through based on their ideal customer profile tier. Like, that's not what a nonprofit is doing. So I think oftentimes, unless a nonprofit is doing corporate sponsorships where you have more of an actual sales motion that mimics a for-profits business, if you have an external tool that connects with HubSpot that will allow you to get all that data to drive your marketing, hook that tool into HubSpot and keep your donations there. That's fine. But if your tool doesn't connect, which is the case oftentimes, then we get into that decision tree of, do we want to build HubSpot payments? And that can also determine, are you going to move your website into HubSpot? If you're moving your website into HubSpot, let's use HubSpot payments and get everything into HubSpot and get everything in one tool. If you're not moving your website into HubSpot, maybe it's on WordPress. Well, then it's like, okay, do we want to create HubSpot payments, or do we want to use a plugin for Stripe, create a form on WordPress, and then use Zapier to automatically create those deals inside of HubSpot using the Zap at the starter level? So I know that's a lot of different decision tree, but kind of in summary, number one, if you have Marketing Hub Pro, you don't need the automations in Sales Hub Pro to send out the tax information, whatever. So you can do that. Number two, if you're going to go inside of HubSpot completely, if we're going to move into CMS, HubSpot CMS, then yeah, let's do the donations with HubSpot payments. If you're keeping your website in WordPress, probably lower cost for you to use Stripe, because we already have a custom Zap recipe. We actually created one of the first solutions that existed for nonprofits to be able to use HubSpot for donor management before they had HubSpot payments. So do it that way. But definitely go for Marketing Hub Pro. So ideal is Marketing Hub Pro, Sales Hub Starter if you do not have like any sort of like, corporate sponsorships or anything where you're doing a sales-like type of motion. If you are doing a sales-like type of motion, get Sales Hub Pro so you can get all the automations that go with that as well. So that's kind of a long roundabout, but Mel, do you feel like I covered it?
Yeah, I feel like you gave me a lot of inspiration there. We have a few more things to dive into. One of the things was, obviously, HubSpot offers a lot of solutions when it comes to donor management. You definitely gave that answer. But it's not the only donor management tool that's available. You also covered a number of other integrations that can be used to manage donors. So what makes HubSpot a better donor management system than some of the other alternatives that nonprofits are currently using?
Yeah, great question. So one of the reasons that I think that HubSpot is better, so I'll break this down. Number one is invisibility, right? So you can see, you can pull a HubSpot record and you can take a look at all the donations somebody has made, how often they've donated, who's interacting with them, right? So that single source of truth you get with HubSpot, where we have the activity feed in the middle, we have the information that's important to us on the left that we get to customize and decide what's there, the custom properties or fields. And then on the right-hand side, we have all the stuff attached through the widgets. So like I said, we can go through and see all of the donations that they have made, so we can have that visibility on who is this donor, what are they doing if I'm going to have some sort of interaction with them. We also have all of our reporting, right? So if we have it all in HubSpot, HubSpot makes it super easy and has all these great reports out of the box, right? So what was our goal for donations this month, and how far are we from reaching that goal? How many donors do we have in the last 60 days that have donated more than $100? How many donors do we have that donate between $50 and $100? So unlike tools like Blackbaud, where you need someone who knows how to do, how to query a database in order to pull a report for you, we can do all of this right out of the box with HubSpot very easily, and so you can report and be able to make good decisions. And then there is the interconnectedness of the entire system, that by having your donor information in there, we can actually condition all of our marketing, right? So we can, in one system, which no other system out there can do this like HubSpot. Probably the closest is Salsa, but I would say maybe 50% of the capability as far as segmentation and automation and the conditions we can do that based on, right? And so the fact that we have this super powerful toolbox of marketing tools that hooks right into the donor database, so that you can have, an example we did last year was, let's say it's your year-end appeal, being able to customize that page based on all the information in your CRM, so that I can actually use calculated properties to dynamically tell each person how much they would have to donate at end of the year to help them reach some goal that we set for them, right? So we could put people into blocks of people who've donated up to $250 to $500, $500 to $1,000, and say, hey, Mel, if you donate $128.68 right now, you'll hit $500, and that will make you one of our silver tier donors for the year, right? Like, we can do that personalization at a massive level for people. And and to do it in a way that a small marketing team can carry that out, because that's usually the case at nonprofits, is that they have a smaller marketing team than we would see at their for-profit counterparts, right? Because the donors want to see the money going into the programs, not going into marketing. So they're having to do everything with a smaller budget for those reasons. And so the fact that you can actually hook on all those marketing tools and automate all of the segmentation, the campaigns, the year-end tax letters, and everything while it's connected to that database is to me why it's better than any other tool out there.
Yeah, that always gets all of us at DR riled up is just how user-friendly HubSpot is and how you're able to do it more thoroughly, and actually with ultimately less work for your small team. That being said, of course, we have to acknowledge that HubSpot is not perfect. It's always growing and adding new features. You've mentioned that there were, payment acceptance features that are relatively new in the grand scheme of HubSpot. So are there any other gaps? Is there anything that you can't do in terms of donor management in HubSpot, and what integrations bridge those gaps for nonprofits?
Ooh, good question on that one. So as far as gaps that HubSpot has, so here are some things. So it is not a niche nonprofit tool, right? So when you get into HubSpot as a nonprofit, if you're used to being in the Salsas, the Blackbauds, the Neon, the, community brands, those products that are specifically for nonprofits, you might land in HubSpot and be like, where are all my things? This does not look like it's here for me. So it is that how customizable it is, right? So will you, get in there and on the left side view of your contacts and companies and deals, see everything you want to know for a nonprofit? No, you won't. But guess what? It's super easy to create those things, and you can make it exactly what you want, which you cannot do with the other tools. So that's one thing. The other thing is some of the stuff we have to customize, like for example, the donations, right? You have to build HubSpot out for managing your donations. Now, the easiest, lowest effort is if you hook in another system like Classy, right? Which you integrate that in, and that integration is automatically going to set it up for certain things. It'll create some of the workflows and help you get some of that out of the box. Fundraise Up, same thing. Now, Fundraise Up there requires an enterprise hub. So you need to get a use case for an enterprise hub. Now, if you're looking to get an enterprise hub to unlock enterprise features and you're looking for the cheapest way to do it as a nonprofit, bringing your website into HubSpot, the CMS hub is going to give you the lowest cost way to get there and a great amount of value for doing that. Remembering you do get 40% discount off of all the hubs. So enterprise hub, why does this help nonprofits? Well, number one, what it's going to allow us to do is get custom objects. So when we need to do something like, let's say you want households, right? Household is not an object in HubSpot, right? So if you want to be able to see Mandy Thompson, the person who works at Digital Reach, but then you want to roll up, Mandy Thompson in her New Mexican household, you're going to want that to be a separate object. Why? Because I'm an individual, yes, and this is my email address, and this is the company I work at, and here's the deals of my donations. But what if, number one, okay, well, Jen and I live in the same household, we're married, so maybe you want to roll up everybody who's at that household into one, because maybe we want one tax letter at the end of the year because we filed jointly, right? So that can be one reason. Or, like I mentioned earlier, I donate from Mandy Thompson's personal and Mandy Thompson's business email, right? So you can roll all of those up, because at the end of the year, I get one tax letter, whether I donated from my Digital Reach or my personal email address. So things like that, you either need to get a high enough hub to do the customization, because HubSpot has massive customization capabilities, right? We can do custom objects, which allows us to make it very custom. We can do custom workflows with JavaScript, Python, and webhooks if a system doesn't hook into HubSpot. So we have all of those capabilities and can do a lot there. But sometimes, yes, those outside integrations are super helpful, like the integration for Classy, where we set everything up right away, right? So there isn't a lot that's missing, and I wouldn't say there's anything that people need that it cannot do. It's just a matter of what's going to be the best bet for you, right? Do you upgrade to enterprise and pay that price, or do you pay for Classy and get Classy to do what you need it to do? And so just and we help people with that, is kind of solving for your set of variables in that decision tree, because it is dynamic based on all of these different conditions, which one would be the best path to getting the objective that you want for moving to HubSpot.
Right. And you're right that we help people with stuff like this all the time and with other obstacles. It would be great if you could ground this information about donor management in HubSpot with some real life accounts of maybe someone that we have helped integrate their donor management into HubSpot.
Yep, absolutely. So great example is we work with this awesome organization out of Florida, Save the Chimps. So if y'all haven't ever checked them out, they're definitely they do great work. And so their donations come through in a lot of different ways. And so number one, we had multiple things we needed to solve for. And part of their team still works in Blackbaud, and we needed to figure out attribution and all of that, right? So number one, we had to figure out a process for deciding we're going to capture everything in HubSpot. So we did that through Stripe. We used our Zap because that's what made the most sense, because they were not using, the only outside system they were using was Blackbaud, which didn't integrate. So we moved that to the Stripe donation. So we're capturing all of that. And then we figured out a workflow process internally for getting that information over to Blackbaud. Okay. So we have that. But then we have different, like I said, we have different types of donations. So there are people who just donate regular. And so we have a pipeline for that. But then they also allow you to adopt chimps. So we have to have a separate pipeline for adopting chimps. So we did that by connecting that to their WooCommerce store so that when certain purchases happen that have a certain naming mechanism, we create deals and do all of our segmentation for marketing, which was the big part of their use case, was being able to, and they've had a massive increase in their donations that they've been able to get by having all of this segmentation and being able to personalize. Because, right, someone who wants to adopt a chimp has totally different needs from a marketing perspective than the person who just gave money. They wanted something different out of that interaction with that organization. And if we can give them that different thing they wanted, they're going to be more likely to give more to the organization and to support the cause. And so we had to set that up. So we were tracking that pipeline. And then we also had to do another pipeline for their, they also have a like swag store, right? That has branded merchandise. And so people can also buy things, which is the same store they use for doing the adoption. So we had to segment that into two different pipelines. But now the end result is Save the Chimps can, number one, track and report on revenue, either rolling it up across all of their pipelines or pipeline by pipeline to see how healthy this month are one-to-one donations, how healthy are adoptions, how healthy is our e-commerce store, right? We can also forecast based on each of those so they can understand what's likely to happen. We can personalize and we can segment. So that is a case where we had complex donation needs and we were able to solve them by using a combination of tools, setting up a Stripe form on their website because their website was not going to be inside of HubSpot. So we took that road, but then hooking in an e-commerce store and just so you know this, if you're thinking of one other quick way to get set up, if you are on WordPress and you are not going to migrate your website into HubSpot, these plugins cost a little more money, but if you do a donation plugin through the WooCommerce store, WooCommerce and HubSpot have an integration that automatically will create deals in the pipeline and move them along. Now, the only thing that's going to look funny if you choose that is the default pipeline is going to have like abandoned cart and all of these stages. So you might need to work on reconciling what your actual donation stages are with what WooCommerce is going to give you out of the box. But WooCommerce will automatically create some segmented lists for you in HubSpot if you have the right HubSpot subscription. So you could do that with again, Sales Hub Starter only gives you 2 pipelines. So you would have to keep your donations to 2 pipelines, but you could use WooCommerce and hook that into HubSpot and have Sales Hub Starter and Marketing Hub Pro and make that work. But that was one of my favorite donations. We've done a lot of them through the Zaps, and then we are actually right now looking at building out a permanent custom module we would put into the app marketplace that would give HubSpot payments all of the same functionality that people are used to getting out of their donor platform and having that available for anyone who uses landing page or website in HubSpot to be able to hook that in.
Yeah, that's awesome. HubSpot truly is the great unifier when it comes to managing donations, integrating all of your tools, and informing your marketing. You've done a great job of explaining all of that to us. So thank you again, Mandy, for talking us through donor management in HubSpot.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mel. And I'll look forward to our next conversation. To the listeners out there will be more videos about all things HubSpot and nonprofits. So feel free to listen in, comment here on Loom, send us an email, whatever. But HubSpot is the best for your nonprofits. If you haven't checked it out, I would be sure to do that.